Good afternoon and welcome to Week Ahead by Ukraine Insights. My name is Adam Sibera and I will walk you through everything you need to watch over the next 7 days. In the coming days, international attention will be focused on the trilateral meeting involving Ukraine, the United States, and Russia, scheduled for January 23rd and 24th. On the eve of the talks, Donald Trump met with Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Following the meeting, Trump stated that Ukraine is ready to sign a peace agreement. At the same time, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner held separate meetings with Vladimir Putin in Moscow. The purpose of the meeting was to convey the outcomes of the Davos talks. Russia continues to insist on adherence to so-called territorial arrangements, but hopes were raised by Zelensky's voice note comments to journalists on January 23rd. Zelensky noted that serious conversations were happening over the modalities of the Donbas issue. The EU's Foreign Affairs Council is set to convene on January 29th, with the situation in Ukraine listed as the first item on the agenda. Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sybiha, is scheduled to address the meeting online. The EU's role in potential peace negotiations remains unclear, particularly amid heightened tensions with Donald Trump over Greenland. Speaking in Davos, Volodymyr Zelensky criticized the lack of initiative from the European Union and urged its members to unite and assume decisive responsibility. The managing director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, expects to submit a new $8.1 billion lending program for Ukraine for board approval in the coming weeks. Among the IMF's most significant conditions remains the removal of VAT exemptions on consumer goods. At this stage, this would require the submission of a relevant draft law to the Verkhovna Rada. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Georgieva said Ukraine must complete a series of painful but critically important reforms in order to become a European growth lion. The winter session of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe is scheduled to take place from January 26 to 30th. Debates on the situation in Ukraine are set for January 27th, with a report to be presented by the Italian delegation. Other highlights of the session include discussion on the situation in Greenland and Gaza, as well as addresses by Moldovan President Maia Sandu and Armenian Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan. The National Bank of Ukraine is scheduled to publish its decision on the key policy rate on January 29th. Since March this year, the rate has remained at 15.5%. According to the NBU's forecast, the rate is expected to gradually decline to about 12.7% in 2026. Inflation slowed to 8% in December, continuing its downward trend since a peak of 15.9% in May 2025. Ukraine will continue to grapple with an energy crisis caused by ongoing Russian attacks on critical infrastructure. Energy Minister Denis Shmyhal described January 22nd as the most difficult day for the energy system since 2022. In Kyiv, up to a quarter of residential buildings remain without heating. Mayor Vitaly Klitschko has once again urged residents to leave the capital if possible. Both the government and military prepared the Ukrainian public to brace for further attacks on energy infrastructure. At the same time, weather conditions in Ukraine are forecast to improve slightly next week, with temperatures in Kyiv expected to rise to around 1 degree Celsius. Next week, on January 29th, Ukraine will commemorate the Day of Remembrance of the Heroes of Kruty. On this day, in 1918, a heroic battle took place in which Ukrainian students and cadets stood against advancing Bolshevik forces, becoming a lasting symbol of resistance in Ukraine's struggle for independence. And now, here are conferences and events next week. On January 31st, EDTH Kyiv will hold a field testing day, an event bringing together 5 to 8 early-stage startups to demonstrate and validate core drone and defense technologies at a dedicated site in Kyiv, with testing conditions of up to 4 kilometers altitude and a 5-kilometer radius in a controlled, safe environment. And further ahead, from February 2nd to February 7th, Ukrainian Week 2026 will take place in Washington, D.C. This is one of the most significant international initiatives organized by a coalition of civic organizations and evangelical churches from the United States and Ukraine. On February 4th, also in Washington, D.C., the U.S.-Ukraine Business Forum 2026, subheaded Innovation and Regional Development and organized by USUBC, will commence. This is an annual forum during Ukrainian Week, bringing together Ukrainian businesses and governmental leaders with the U.S. private sector to discuss Ukraine's recovery and long-term economic development. The NAHB International Builder Show 2026 starts on February 17th, one of the world's largest residential construction exhibitions, bringing together global manufacturers, developers, suppliers, and innovators to showcase solutions, build partnerships, and expand international market opportunities. The event will be offline and last until February 19th. The same day, the 2026 Kyiv International Cyber Resilience Forum launches in Kyiv. The Technology and Cybersecurity Forum for Ukraine and the Central and Eastern Europe region, focused on strengthening cyber resilience and digital security, will take place until February 20th. This podcast is a shortened version of KI Insights public newsletter, The Week Ahead. Subscribe to start your week with an agenda of Ukraine-related events delivered directly to your inbox every week at the link in the description, where all stories and events are included, along with a link to sign up to our longer newsletter edition. Hope you have a great week ahead. Thank you for listening to Ukraine Insights. To be notified of future episodes, please consider subscribing to the podcast. For more analysis, insights, and research, please check out our accounts on X, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn in the podcast description below. And to subscribe to our analytical products, please visit our website insights.kyivindependent.com.